So I watched Supergirl and I have some thoughts. Now, first things first, if you haven't seen the film yet and you plan on watching it, there will be spoilers, if you care at least. So the consensus about this film online is that it's absolutely horrible. Usually when I hear film is that bad, I go in expecting it to be hot garbage from start to finish. Now, everyone is entitled to their opinion, but I don't think this film was that. Obviously, the movie is far from perfect and has its flaws, which I'm going to get into, but I don't think it's absolutely horrible. Now, Supergirl is based on the Woman of Tomorrow comic book by Tom King, but they made a few changes. The story begins with a young girl named Ruthie whose family is killed by a bounty hunter called Krem of the Yellow Hills. So Ruthie seeks out a warrior to help her avenge her family, and she stumbles onto Kara. Realizing how powerful Kara is, she asks for her help to kill Krem and avenge her family. But while she does this, Krem steals Kara's ship and shoots Crypto with a poison. Kara now has 3 days to get the antidote to save Crypto, so she goes off to find Krem and his army of brigands, while Ruthie tags along hoping to kill Krem and get revenge for what he did to her family. So let's start with Krem of the Yellow Hills. This has to be one of the worst designs of a comic book villain I've ever seen. I just couldn't take him serious, and it's sad because on paper he is a serious villain. You know, he's a space scavenger who has super strength and an entire army. Also, Krem and the brigands go around the galaxy kidnapping young girls. So they're this word that I can't say on YouTube. But I'm sorry, this design just made him look goofy as hell. And I took a glance at the actor they got to play him, and he literally looks like Krem from the comics. So what was the point of making him look like this?
Look at this dude. Wait till you see the. No, 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 no.
And you know something? Have y'all noticed how a lot of these villains for the female heroes, they mostly tend to fall under this umbrella? Don't y'all find that weird? Because when you consistently make this the villain's motivation for the female heroes, you're not only making the villains like super one-dimensional, but you're putting the female heroes in a box because this is apparently the only thing they can fight. But that's a topic for another video. Then there were times where I thought the editing was a bit choppy, like in some of the fight scenes were a tad bit questionable, especially in the third act. It's not exactly what I expected. So the director of this film, I looked up some of his previous work, and I'm not sure any of this would justify him directing a character like Supergirl because, you know, she's fast, she's strong, there's a lot of action involved, and some of the action just wasn't hitting. I also think removing some of the fantastical elements of the story was a bad move. Like, there's a part in the comic where Supergirl has to outrun what's called a Mordru globe. So a Mordru globe is a magical ball that teleports whatever it touches halfway across the universe. And Krem would use it to throw Supergirl and Ruthie off his trail. And it's been stated that no man or woman can outrun a Mordru globe. So Supergirl had to use her super horse called Comet to outrun it. And it's this really cool chase sequence of her using Comet to outrun the Mordru globe across the galaxy. I know I said the action was a bit lackluster, so I think something like this could have made up for that. And you know, one of the selling points of the Woman of Tomorrow comic was really the art and the colors. And I feel like they kind of dropped the ball by not depicting that in the cinematography, considering most of the film takes place in outer space and on different planets with different suns. And it's so interesting that I've seen claims that James Gunn secretly directed this film, when ironically, if he did, I know for a fact the cinematography would have at least been better. Okay, so let's talk about the things that I liked. So first, I think Millie Alcock does a pretty good job as Supergirl in terms of the acting. You know, Woman of Tomorrow is a story about grief and Kara missing her home world, and I think she really does do a good job of portraying the grief of someone who had to witness their home world being destroyed and having to adapt to a new one, unlike Kal-El, who grew up on Earth. Also, I want you guys to notice how the revisionism has already begun. I said in my video I did when the trailer came out that they're gonna rewrite history and claim that these versions of Supergirl are somehow the bestest ever, when in reality they were being labeled as woke garbage. The flashback scenes I thought were pretty decent. I wish they would have added more because we don't see that many scenes of her on Earth, And from what I've seen, I think this movie takes place before Superman. Jason Momoa also does a pretty good job as Lobo in this film. Despite the issues the movie has, I think he's one of the few things they really did get right. The size, the voice, everything. Lobo is a space bounty hunter who is a menace. So you kind of have to go out of your way to mess up a character like Lobo. Now, there's this thing in the comic book that Kara does, right? She lies to Ruthie and makes her believe that they were trying to get the antidote for Crypto, but it was really all just to show her that killing Krem is bad and she shouldn't do it. But in the film, Krem really did have the antidote to save Crypto and they needed it. Now, here's the dilemma. There are some who feel that they should have adapted that Kara was lying about the antidote in the film, and here's why I disagree. Crypto is the only thing she has left of her homeworld, so she doesn't want to lose him. Yes, she has Kal-El, but at this stage she doesn't know him like that. Crypto is who she remembers from her homeworld who is still alive. So the stakes being that they need to get the antidote to save Crypto, that works better in a film, in my opinion. Besides, her not lying about the antidote wouldn't have stopped them from doing the whole revenge bad plotline. It'd be like killing two birds with one stone. Oh, by the way, I've seen complaints about her not being born on Krypton or even being older than Superman because in the film before Krypton blew up, Zor-El put a shield around Argo City and sent it into outer space. So Kara was born 8 years after that. I don't have a problem with this because Supergirl's origin has been changed a couple times in the comics, and when she was first created, she was born on Argo City, which was a fragment of Krypton after it blew up. And Kryptonite began poisoning and killing everyone, which is why Zor-El eventually sent her to Earth. So the film used her origin from the Silver Age. So if I had to give this movie a score, I'd probably give it a 6.5 out of 10. It's far from perfect, but I don't think it's a complete dumpster fire as a film. And as an adaptation, I'd say it does a fairly okay job at adapting the Woman of Tomorrow comic book. There are some things I think they could have done better, but to really paint a picture, I would say Supergirl is kind of like a Phase 1 movie from the MCU, if that makes sense. If it came out like 15 years ago, I don't think it would be getting this much hate. But anyway, these are just my thoughts. Let me know yours down in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.